Hey, this is John Duggan, and you're watching WithoutYourHead.com.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal.
I'm Treacherous Trista.
And we're joined by ghoulish Guinevere Turner, actor, screenwriter, film director, and now ghoul. It's very good to have you here.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah. And teacher, we found out as well.
Yes, professor.
Professor, that's a much better title.
I mean, actually, my academic friends would roll their eyes at that because, to be called professor, you have to have a PhD, and I do not have such a thing. I just have a PhD in life.
All right. We won't let anyone know. Yeah. And luckily, no one watches this, so they won't know. But, I actually did say actor, screenwriter, filmmaker. Which one of those, I won't say is like your favorite, but which one is like more fulfilling?
It's like the same question, really, Neal.
It's kind of like rolling your eye at professor over teacher.
No, I am very happy that I do all of those things. I don't act nearly as much as I would like to. If I was only an actor, I would probably be also a waitress. Writing is so solitary, or, I collaborate a lot. So, but it's very contained experience, and acting is so, just people. And, once you're shooting, there's so much energy and urgency and excitement and, minute to minute challenges. And I love all that. And then I get sick of people touching me. People don't talk about this a lot, but when you're an actor, so many people have to touch you in a non-affectionate, and they might be people you just met, just sound people and wardrobe and then hair and makeup and then other actors. And then sometimes people, not if they know me for more than a couple hours, will, like, instead of telling me where they need me to stand, will touch me. And, I just set all those boundaries right away. Like, I don't like this part. I was one time just having a meltdown. I'm really easy to work with except for that part. And I was just like, I was like getting wired for a mic with a corset. And so it was like 5 people all around me when I was like barely dressed on top. And I just said, I just can't stand all of this non-affectionate, consensual touching. And my friend, who was another actor who was in the makeup chair, she goes, I kind of like it. I think some people actually don't mind it. It depends on who you are. Anyway, so then after, a few weeks or many weeks on a set, I'm also really happy to be alone and in a quiet, contained space. So it suits me well to go among them. And directing, I love, and I hope to do a lot more of. I've directed shorts up to this point, and working toward being someone who gets to direct features and TV. Have a plan. It's hard, but
yeah, especially right now.
I got my own TV show.
Oh, nice.
I have really great directors that I know. I sneak in my own episodes later in the season that I direct. Then I'm a TV director. Then, I've proven that I can do it. That's the hardest thing, is just getting the opportunity to have someone, let you prove that you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, how did you get to the point where people gave you the chance to write something, to write a screenplay?
I didn't. My first screenplay was for my first film, Go Fish. I didn't study screenwriting. I studied fiction writing in undergrad, and that's all the college I went to. And then I wanted to make this film, and I loved movies, but I'd never read a screenplay. And I just said to the director, like, yeah, I think, how hard can it be? Like, people walk into a room and they say things and then they walk out. That is literally what I said. There's a little more to it than that. And if you see my first film, Go Fish, it's a good thing that there's sex scenes, because otherwise there's a lot of talking. But then after that, it looked like I could write screenplays. And so I started to get asked and started to learn by doing, which is to say that I've written many screenplays that were not very good and made all the rookie mistakes of someone who'd never been taught anything. But then all of a sudden once I met Mary Harron and we were working on the Notorious Bettie Page and then subsequently American Psycho, once American Psycho was out, I was legit, whether I was actually legit or not. So that I was like, studying and learning so much from reading a lot of scripts as an actor too, like starting to really be able to identify sort of repetitive, boring mistakes and or nonsensical mistakes. And so very self-taught, and somewhere along the way, someone believed me, and here we are.
Yeah. So what what advice would you give to someone who did want to write scripts? Would it be to read scripts?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that, or one of the big things I found very useful is to get your hands on a script for a movie that then you can watch and learn by looking back and forth. Like, that's what that looks like on the page. Oh, that's what that could look like on the screen. And just understanding the sort of the language and, sort of reverse engineering it, and to understand how the pros do it and how movies you love looked on the page. And, because one of the biggest things I teach students, and I also, am a script consultant, is that you have to remember that you're not talking to yourself when you're writing a script. You're talking to so many people. It's not like writing a short story. You're trying to explain what you see. And especially for writer-directors, I'm always like, I know you know what you're talking about, but like, you can't just ramble on like you're telling me your dream and you just woke up. Like, you got to make it really clear. So my advice to people is especially if you're teaching yourself, is exactly that. Study movies you love and why they work, and find their scripts. And it's very easy to find scripts online for most movies, most big movies.
Yeah, a friend of mine recently told me he thought the biggest mistake for people who started to write scripts was that they just think it's all dialogue and not to actually explain the scene. So it's actually kind of very similar to what you just said.
Yes. That's one that I find, lots of dialogue. I find, and this is just, I'm just going to go off on a list of personal peeves that I see a lot in first time, emerging and learning writers. People who have guns who would never normally have guns. It's like somehow all of a sudden there's a gun. Do you know what I mean? Like, most people I know don't have guns, or if they do, they're hiding them very well. And it's just like, people without dangerous or violent lives are just like, now I have a gun. One-sided phone conversations where you're only seeing the person go, mm-hmm. Oh, Bob, I never said that. It's just really annoying. People saying, look. I swear to God, in real life, people don't say this. Like, look, Neal. This is what don't start sentences, but people do all the time in film and television. Look. Calling any character ruggedly handsome.
I get that a lot.
I mean, it's crazy how often people use that. I'm like, do you know what a cliche that is? Like, I'm like, just let's see ruggedly handsome as like a thing that has 1 billion degrees. Now give me 2 other fucking words.
Right.
And this one is really weird and abstract, and it takes my students and friends sometimes a minute to get it. But people in film and TV use the expression "back there" a lot. So they'll be like, "Hey, you were really great back there," or like, I really appreciate what you said back there. This "back there" that I never hear people say in real life, and when I do, I'm like, "Oh, it's a unicorn." They said "back there," but they watch too much film and TV, because that's not how real people talk. So anyway, my sister always says, you should never say you were great back there unless it's in a sexual context.
That works. Yeah. About the phone thing too, I always hate it when people just they'll just repeat what the other person's saying because you can't hear them, so they'll just repeat their sentence, which is what you're saying, I guess. Right,
or what I call the exposition fairy, where it's like, brothers who are very close, and all of a sudden they're going, do you remember that time when we were young and Timmy drowned and it was really traumatic for us and it really bonded us as brothers? It's like, no, cheating. And in that same vein, people who know each other well, either friends, lovers, family, saying each other's names over and over. Like, if you notice in your real life, you either have a nickname for someone, a term of endearment, or you just don't. You can spend an entire afternoon with someone you're close with and never say their name. I always say people only say my name if they're madly in love with me or really pissed off at me. I feel like that's the only time, unless you're just meeting people. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's a little basket of my don't do it. Yeah.
Jason, who does our written reviews on the website, he's not a fan of that either. He'll even has put down like the number of times they say someone's name. Like, I think one movie had like 200 times they said the lead.
It's once you really pay attention to it in real life, you realize that how rarely you say that the nearest and the names of the nearest and dearest to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just thought of another one that I love because it's so annoying. Oh, it's a scene direction thing when people will be like, Bob steps in the elevator and the wallpaper reminds him of his dead grandmother. I'm like, I know a lot of really talented actors in the world, but I don't know if I can give you dead grandma's wallpaper with my face. Like, that's a cheat. You can't tell us what the actor's face is telling us. Not in that level of detail.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I just spend most of my classes ranting.
So when you started to work with Mary, like, did you know her before? Like, how did you meet her?
We met, she was just meeting with producer Christine Vachon, who produced her first film, I Shot Andy Warhol, and who had just produced my first film, Go Fish. And we just happened to be at the Groucho Club in London. I was promoting and she was meeting with Christine, and we met, and she said, she was like, you look a lot like Bettie Page. And I didn't know who Bettie Page was. And we started talking about Bettie Page, and we just got along almost instantly, and decided to try to write something about Bettie, and that's where it began. It's so rare. I didn't know this now because I was, 27 or something, and really just starting out and not knowing anything. But I didn't realize how rare and valuable it is when you meet someone that you can just click with creatively. Mm-hmm. We were also good friends, but we just immediately kind of had the same sense of humor, had the same work ethic, had the same kind of, the biggest thing that it's a sensibility thing, that you can really like someone, you can respect their work, but when you sit down to try to collaborate with them, it's just the parts don't fit. And now it's, 25 years later, and we just had our movie come out last year that we did together, and then we've got another one. I'm really hot. This is an ice pack. I'm not injured. I'm just really hot.
All right.
And I have to keep the windows closed.
Okay.
And we have another script that we wrote that we're raising money to do, which is also in I wouldn't call Charlie Says our most recent film horror, although it's No Day at the Beach. But our next film, that's called The Highway That Eats People, is definitely a scary movie.
I love the name, The Highway That Eats People.
Thank you. It's a line from this weird little novella that we found. That's called, the book is called The Orange Eats Creeps, which is, the book is one stream of consciousness madness that we fashioned into a story. But The Highway That Eats People, it's about homeless kids, outcast of the foster care system, who just feral creatures wandering in the streets and causing trouble.
What's that process like to take a novel or a novella, a story that's already written, and then translate it to a script? Because I saw you a few times say that you don't like when people just say, "Oh, that's easy," just to take a story, and then now you make a movie out of it. Yeah,
people will be like, "Oh, it was a book first," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's in some ways that's harder. You don't get to start from scratch. You're dealing with the original material, trying to turn, in the case of American Psycho, and also in this one that we just did, something that's really defying traditional narrative and make it into that. It's a huge, it's more than even a translation job. It's like a reimagining. Mary and I, even though now we live in different cities, we sit in the same room for long hours, just blah, 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 and reading pieces of the book. Like, what is this? How could, we want this in the movie somehow. We like this image, let's just make a pile of images over here, or a pile of scenes, or a piece of dialogue. In the case of American Psycho, there's so much funny dialogue. And that was a huge challenge for us, because a lot of the chapters in the book are just him talking about, a particular album, but there's no plot. It's like a really nerdy music review. And trying to figure out how to make that cinematic and make it come out of the character's mouth rather than just be in his head was a big challenge. And sometimes you just have to make stuff up. You just have to, create connective tissue where there isn't any, and hope that it still feels true to the story. The Bettie Page is a biopic, but again, it felt like an adaptation because, people's lives are just as freeform as some books can be in terms of defying narrative structure and knowing which part to tell. And, we started working on Bettie Page, and the movie came out 9 years later.
Oh, wow.
We stopped to do American Psycho, but we just kept, writing different drafts that encompass this much of her life and this much of her life and this, and then incorporating these traumatic things and then deciding not to. And it was that in some ways it was a bigger challenge because it's not as finite. At least a book is like, this is it. If we know every single thing in this little thing, then we can mold it into our own shape. So amorphous, and American Psycho just gave us nightmares because we just I don't know if you've read the book, but
I haven't actually.
It's very relentlessly detailed in its violence and sexual violence, and then just like gruesome dismembering, oh my God, what is your problem? How did you even think of this violence? So it's a tough read, and also weirdly hilarious, which just makes you feel like a creep for reading it because you're also laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Just what we loved about it.
I get that feeling a lot. So yeah,
I'm a creep,
right? Because I'm laughing at things I probably shouldn't be.
But I'm really not. I'm not even really not. I'm very much not a scary movie person.
Uh-huh.
I'm just. I just get scared. So there's a lot of scary movies that I haven't seen. It probably would have taken me a long time to see American Psycho if I hadn't written it.
Right. Yeah. So from my understanding, you hadn't read the book, when the idea came up to do the screenplay.
Yeah. Just like when she said, I look like Bettie Page. Let's make a movie about Bettie Page. I'm like, who's Bettie Page? And she's like, do you know the book American Psycho? I was like, huh? What? I don't know what I would do without Mary. I'm so glad that finally in our third film together, that was me bringing it to her. Not that she didn't know who Charles Manson was, but I read.
Who's this guy?
What? So yeah, Mary. Yeah, she said. Probably if you've heard me say that I hadn't read it, you've also heard me say this, which is that she was like, I know you're gonna hate me for making you read this book, but I feel like we can make a good movie. Because she just knows I'm scared of scary things and they give me nightmares. And yet here I am writing scary movies about serial killers and cult leaders, and I don't know, maybe the fact that I'm scared of them makes me maybe I can tap into what scares people more than some people who are more like deep into. It's just funny because people meet me, especially people in the horror world, and they just assume that I'm one of those cool girls who's just like, oh yeah, I've seen all the grisly, gruesome Saw 5, and I'm like, no, please, don't make me watch it. There's a couple movies that I really want to watch, but I'm scared. Jordan Peele's Us.
Oh, I'm a fan.
It looks so scary. The trailer looks so scary, but I was just dying to see it. I love him, and I loved Get Out, but I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't help that I live alone. Like people are like, well, God, just, whatever. I'm like, you have a partner. Like you have someone who's going to be like, if you go, what was that they're going to be like, shut up, it's fine. Like I just live alone. I think it makes a big difference. I think, it's easier if you don't have to just finally turn the light out and have like all those images and whispery things in your ears. I'm just a sensitive creature, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I do have to see Us though. I mean, have you guys seen it?
Yeah, I was a big fan. I saw it in the theater, and I do think scary movies are fun to watch in the theater because you get the interaction with the crowd, which you can't at the moment, but if we go back.
A friend tricked me into seeing, what's that brilliant Scandinavian film about the little baby vampires? Oh,
let the right one in?
Let the right one in. Yeah, so I think it's Norwegian. They tricked me because they knew that I wouldn't go to the theater to see it if I knew it was a scary movie, but I'm pretty easy to trick because if you want me to see a movie, I don't want to hear anything about it. I just want to go in as cold as possible because I wish everyone would see my movies that way with zero expectations, just to sort of trust.
I always say that on the show, I think it's the best way to see a movie. It's not always possible, but that's why I like the festival.
It's rarely possible.
You don't really know much about the movies when you go to them.
I try not to watch trailers if I want to see a movie. But anyway, so my friends said, come see this cool movie, Let the Right One In. And I was like, is that scary, you guys? They were like, no. It's like a sweet story about kids. Like it's they're vampires. But like it's not scary. Like the opening scene of that movie is like, icy, Scandinavian woods with like a body being dragged through. I was like, fuck you guys. This is so scary. But by the end, I was like, this is the most beautiful movie I've ever seen. I have to be tougher because I'm missing out on great stuff. I love that movie. Yeah. I didn't see the American one, but that one was just.
The American one is good, but it's really almost shot for shot the same movie. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's like shots that are just taken right from it. And the book's excellent too. If you ever read the book.
Oh, I didn't realize it was based on a book.
Yeah, they go more into some of the details about the vampire. If she's, I don't want to spoil it, but it's more about what gender she is. Do you want me to spoil it? I'll spoil it. But
no, don't spoil. Don't spoil.
But yeah, it's much more horrific and much more sad. The book.
Oh wow!
So I would check it out. I'd recommend it. So we were talking American Psycho. So when you did read it, did you initially I think this will make a good movie, or what did you think about it?
I did, because I thought it was such sort of scathing satire, and had so much funny stuff in it. And I immediately saw what Mary saw, that a lot of people didn't see it right off the bat, especially women, that it was making fun of men, not that it was glorifying violence toward women, although arguably the book is really pushing it. And, some would say the movie's pushing it, I guess. But to me, I saw, and we immediately agreed, if we can, put the violence at about 1/16 of what it is in the book and get more into kind of the off-screen horror and the comedy and the satire, that we could make a movie. But we were both like, we're going to get shit for this. And we're like, well, we don't, there's no doubt in our minds that we're coming at it from a feminist perspective and a socially responsible perspective. So bring it. And it was tough because, premiered at Sundance in 2000. You could feel the audience not loving it. And it was like a packed house. We got terrible reviews. It had some fans, but it took about 5 years before people started going, you know what? And then it took about 10 years before people were like, hey, actually that movie's, and then like in the last 10 years, it's like every year the movie gets more popular, which is kind of amazing. Like, movies tend to have their moment and then move on. And it's, if you're 20 years later, you're still talking about a movie you made, that's like just something to be really thankful for. And it was funny because when our film Charlie Says premiered in the Venice Film Festival in 2018 and did not get great reviews after the first screening, and we were sort of sulking in the lobby of the hotel, and Mary's husband John Walsh, he's like googling on his phone, and then he's like, hey you guys, let me read you some excerpts from some reviews you got of American Psycho 20 years ago or 18 years ago at that time. And some of the wording was exactly the same. And we were like, it's so hard to be misunderstood. We're just always ahead of our time. We gotten tougher, but I'm also like, we're not getting any younger. Like I don't want to wait another 20 years for people to understand what the heck we're talking about.
All right. It's interesting because I watched it again last night, American Psycho, and Trista and I were talking. It's really relevant to today, and like toxic masculinity wasn't even, I don't think it was even a term back then, but I think watching it now, like that really comes through in the movie.
Yeah. And I mean, the only thing that makes me cringe is really that it's good and it's bad, but it still hurts a little, is just that Donald Trump is still funny. Do you know what I mean? That there's like two, like I think one point he goes, is that Ivanka Trump? And then it's, he mentions Donald Trump at some other point. And just, it's kind of amazing that he's in there because like he is a kind of like hideous, more old Patrick Bateman. I mean, he sort of wishes he was Patrick Bateman, our president. Yeah. So it feels relevant in that way. I also feel like we were worried at the time when we were making it that really kind of digging into the excess of the 80s, like there wasn't enough room. People weren't ready to see it. So I also feel like a generation of people grew up who didn't experience the 80s as even teenagers. And they were just like, aha, the 80s. And it worked. Yeah. And then of course there's the French who love anything that makes fun of America. The movie was so popular in France when it first came out in a way that it wasn't anywhere else. And they were like, they just love it when they were like, yeah, you are assholes.
Yeah, I mentioned the 80s to Trista too, was because like right now there's just everything is 80s nostalgia. There's so many TV shows. I think too much, but I don't think at the time like there was so much things taking place in the 80s and about the 80s.
Yeah, in the year 2000.
Yeah, when you made American Psycho.
Yeah, no, not at all. It wasn't far enough in the past. I don't think. a generation of people like the guys who made Stranger Things are my age. So like they were, young teenagers when E.T. came out. And Stranger Things to me, like I started watching it and I was like, oh my, it poked at these guys gotta be my age.
Right.
It just poked at every single, Gremlins and all these movies that I loved as a young teenager. But weirdly somehow translated to a generation younger than us as well. Mm-hmm. And what's killing me right now is 90s nostalgia, is hearing like an oldies radio station and they're playing Kurt Cobain. I'm like,
yeah. The stuff I went to high school with. Yeah.
Are you calling me an oldie? Yeah, it'll be fun.
I went to Nick at Night recently just to see if it was still a thing. And like all the shows on it were shows like, it was like, I don't know, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or whatever. And I was like, oh, I don't consider them old shows. And like, there was even like shows that I think I never even seen that came out like after I stopped watching sitcoms, and it did make me feel very old.
It's fun though. I feel wise.
There you go. That's a better way to look
And
at
also
it.
I feel like my students, so I've taught at NYU, Columbia, UCLA, Sarah Lawrence, and I feel like my students see me as this sort of like endless wealth of film knowledge. And in fact, I'm just like, I just been around for a long time. It's not that I'm like, went to film school and studied films. I just love films. And now I've been around watching them for 40 years longer than you have. So that's nice about being old.
Trista, I don't want to take up all the time. Do you have a question? Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was wondering, you kind of glossed over Go Fish a little. And that was your first film, right? And it's so experimental and very independent. And I think that's very inspirational for upcoming independent filmmakers. So I was wondering if you could talk more about that film.
So we started writing that film. The director, who was my girlfriend at the time, had just graduated from film school. I was just a temp with a liberal arts degree and a whole lot of nothing. I was not really, I learned a lot, but didn't know anything about film making or screenwriting. And we just decided, we started doing them because we were just thinking, knowing that there were no lesbian films that really, we felt like represented us, just in terms of like daily life, community, friends, bullshit jobs, parent drama, relationship drama, just like regular life, like the way we were experiencing it. And so we started out, we just did somehow I tricked her into this. I'm like, you max out all your credit cards. I'll be the one who doesn't. But I kept my day job, which was the better paying of our jobs. And she started doing pre-production stuff and we were writing. And she had tons of friends who were either in film school or had relationships with all the film schools in the Chicago area. So we got all of our equipment from all the different schools for people who still had borrowing privileges, which after an 18-hour day shooting, making sure like this C-stand goes to U of I and this C-stand goes to Columbia College in Chicago that was hard. And that was also my job because I was, producing and acting in addition to writing and, putting lipstick on people and whatever. And then so what we got it so that we had like a half hour, we shot it on film, on 16 millimeter black and white film, which is, it blows my mind sometimes. So we're making this film in 92 and 93. It came out in 94. We didn't have email or cell phones. I was like, Rose Trochet is the name of the director. I said to her recently, like, how did we do that? She was like, I didn't. She's like, you did it. She's like, you were just always on the phone. And we didn't even have a cordless phone. She's like, you were just always on the phone. You were at work on the phone. And she's like, and you had, I forgot I had an office job. I used all that stuff for secretly printing out scripts and, energies of people in their early 20s. And then, so we brought it to Christine Vachon with just our little half hour kind of assembled film, which initially was a lot more experimental than it eventually grew into being. There's a traditional narrative that everything else is hanging on. And she found us John Pearson, who gave us the money to finish the film. And John Pearson had given Spike Lee his first money, had given Michael Moore his first money, had given Richard Linklater his first money. In fact, wrote a book soon after called Spikes, Mikes, Slackers, and Dykes, which is about these four films that back when he was really a champion of finding money for independent films that needed finishing funds. And then we got into Sundance, and then we were like, what? Wow. And then we stopped fighting. Because we broke up in the middle. We were girlfriends when we started, and we broke up in the middle of making the movie. And one of the main sets was our apartment, which she moved out of, and
whoa,
it was drama. And she was the director, and I was the main actor, and it was hard. But once we had success, it really, I think, made us just be like, okay, we're fine. Let's get over it. Like, I can't believe we made a movie, and we're going to Sundance, and we're traveling the whole world, and it was amazing. But altogether, that film probably cost, like, stem to stern, about $80,000. And I will always say to new and young or young filmmakers, 35 of that was spent fixing sound.
Oh, wow.
So get it right the first time if you can. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a scene, like, we were just shooting in our apartments. We have this dolly that's just going over this creaking wood floor. And I'm talking on the phone, and it's just like, and yeah, we put fireworks over it. So
that's very clever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it wasn't, obviously it was a sound designer who's like, all right, let me fix what you first timers or these mistakes you're making, which was actually a fascinating experience, but it's expensive just to sit there and brainstorm with how to fix all these things that there's no alternative for. So get sound right. Even in the digital age, that remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
I found the wedding dress scene and that VO to be very powerful.
That was the first thing we shot.
Oh, wow. How funny.
Yeah, before we really even had a story. I had found that wedding dress in a thrift store that it just fit me perfectly, and it was like $10, and so I just bought it. And then I just started, and then I was like, Rose, let's make a short film. Like, let me write this little voiceover. And then we did it. And it was so fun that we were like, let's make a whole movie, or let's keep making a movie, and let's, create something non-experimental. Yeah. So yeah, I remember that first night after we were shooting that, and like, it was all our friends, and nobody was doing stuff in 1992. Like, independent film, at least in our world in Chicago, hadn't become this thing where everywhere you turn, someone's making a movie. And so it was just really exciting. Like, everybody was, it was just it made everyone, it just felt different than hanging out in bars and going to concerts and, just going to parties. All of a sudden we were like doing something, and we got to watch the dailies, and yeah, we were like, I was like, this is fun. I like production.
Yeah. You saw that same feeling today?
Yeah, I do. I love production. I'm really, I was like, I had so much fun on the set of Charlie Says, my last film with Mary. I mean, I wasn't acting, which is, sometimes when you're acting, it can be, acting, I just get peopled out. Too many people, because you have to concentrate in this way, but you also have to deal with people. You know what I mean? Like, so imagine you're trying to be someone else entirely, but in between you and being that is 2 hours of people touching your face and telling you what to wear and asking you if you want breakfast and moving you from place to place. And you're like, I'm a giraffe. I'm a giraffe. I have to just pretend. That to me I find that exhausting. Whereas on the set of Charlie Says, I wasn't an actor, although Lord knows I tried. I begged Mary to let me be the warden of the women's prison, and she was just like, no. I was like, come on, Mary, isn't it kind of our thing? Like, I was in American Psycho, and, I was supposed to play Bettie Page, but then I couldn't for various reasons. And she was like, nah. She's like, no one's going to believe you as the warden of a women's prison in 1972. And I was like, I'll get a bowl haircut. I'll wear sensible pearls. I'll do it. I'm an actor. You just know me as me. I'm like actually an actor. She was just like, not happening. And then I would tell her husband would he please whisper it in her ear when she was sleeping. It didn't work. I also realized now that we're a known team, I feel like also she probably was like, that'll just, it feels gimmicky when you're, especially when you're doing a period piece, like you just want to stay in it. So, and we got the amazing Annabeth Gish, so it all worked out. But on that set, I was just, Mary just gave me the kind of access that, writers don't usually get. I was just sitting next to her the whole time. I was, talking to actors. She was turning to me and asking me, do you think we got it? Do you have any notes, or do you think we should move on? Like really, really treating me in this like deeply collaborative way that is so rare. And it was so fun. And I was going home at night and rewriting things with her permission. The script supervisor was like, what? Because in production, when you start at a color blue, and then when the pages change, it goes to different colors. And then like salmon is like 10 colors in. And then once you get to salmon, you go to double blue. And the script supervisor, she's like, are we at double salmon? Like I felt so accomplished, but it's such a luxury to be able to sort of actually see words coming out of the actor's mouth and see the space and see, and just be able to say to the director, don't you think if we blah, 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 blah? She's like, yeah, do that. Send it to me tonight. Let's. So that was that kind of production I loved, which is to say, clearly I will love it when I get to be a director. And I've directed shorts, but that level of sort of intensity and chaos and problem solving and sort of now or neverness, live for it.
When you did the shorts, did they go to festivals? What happened to them?
Yeah, the first two I did went to Sundance. The other ones I did all the LGBT festivals. One is just, some of them have distribution on, IFC or other shorts platforms. Yeah, I did. But then I was actually, I'm friends with a couple of the programmers at Sundance, or I was a few years ago, and he was like, I was like, what, you're not going to take my third short? And he was like, this is how it works. We can't just keep showing filmmakers shorts. We want to see them progress. So we're dying to show a feature that you direct, but, we want you to, we've given you a platform, like, go. I was like, oh, good wisdom. They're not just going to let you keep making your little shorts forever.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's nice, though. Yeah. I mean, it's actually being trying to be helpful to you as well.
Yeah, like kicking you out of the nest. Like, don't get too comfortable here. Keep challenging yourself. Keep trying. Yeah,
that's interesting, because I know a lot of filmmakers who I know only make shorts, and I do always think like, that's cool stuff, but you can't really sell them, and I would think you'd eventually want to make a feature, like you just said yourself.
Yeah, and the thing is that I've learned too is that when I've been doing a short, I wrote and directed these ones that I've done. I'm like, all the work that it took to organize this, all the momentum, everything that needs to come together, I could just as easily go on for 2 more weeks. The pre-production is the hard part, and obviously the money. Mm-hmm. But the actual mechanics of getting it all together is the same. And I have those skills.
Yeah. Can you see those shorts now?
Can they be seen now?
Yeah.
Yes, my most recent one is from 3 years ago. It's called Post-Apocalyptic Potluck, which is weirdly timely.
Yes.
And it's on a platform called Tello, Tello, Tello.com. And the other ones I am not sure. I should really have that together so that I can say, ta-da, I'm a director. But I'm not a very organized person when it comes to,
I understand.
Like, once it's over, I have a hard time keeping track of everything. I have taxes, bills, cards. I'm really bad at all that stuff. Yeah. So sometimes people are like, you didn't save that magazine that you were in? I'm like, maybe I did. I don't know.
Uh-huh. With the rise of all the platforms, though, there's, they need content everywhere. So it's a good time to either make a short or a feature or a series. From what I understand, a lot of people say series is really the way to go.
Yeah, I'm also pitching I was pitching a television series, really trying to get that going, because I feel like, as you say, there's so many platforms, and especially now, I feel like there's going to be this big dip in content, and so people are going to be more likely to say yes. So I'm actually thinking about how to create a pitch on Zoom and trying to think about how to use the platform in a way that you wouldn't have the luxury of doing in an in-person pitch. And my idea is actually to gather, I know a million actors, obviously I live in LA, gather some actors and have them do a reading of a scene and have that be part of the pitch, which, you could never do in a pitch room, but it might actually, but this exec is just sitting at home looking at all your stuff, and then maybe they will watch it. And then maybe the brilliant actors and the snappy dialogue will be like, I'd watch this.
Right.
Because pitching is so hard. And I don't think I'm very good at it. Otherwise, I would have a TV show.
Fair enough.
But I will. I will have a TV show.
All right. So another thing I want to mention too about being of American Psycho being like very relevant right now was one particular scene when Bateman's having sex with the two prostitutes and he's filming it all and he's looking at the video and stuff. It really reminded me of social media where like if you're at not right now, but if you're at a concert or at any event, like people they're more like worried about taking a picture of it or a video of it to show everybody as opposed to just, being there and doing it. Yeah,
that's true. I didn't think about that. The actual technology plus narcissism.
Yeah.
Which is now just the fabric of our society. I mean, I've had friends say like, "Oh, fuck, we didn't take any pictures because just when we had lunch," and I'm like,
I mean, I'm guilty of that myself.
It's like we know we had lunch, but then I've also caught myself thinking that like, "Oh my god, that's amazing," and like, no, there's no evidence. Like, when did we switch to needing evidence? Or proof or bragging material or whatever, like, look, I have a life. Like, we all know that like half of the stuff we post makes other people feel bad about their lives, like they look like they're having fun. And people have said to me, direct messages or whatever on social media, things like, wow, you look like your life is going so good. I'm like, no, I'm fucking miserable. I'm not going to post a picture of me crying. That was yesterday.
Right. Yeah. I think Trista's actually even said that in interviews that social media is like a fake version of your life.
Yeah.
Or, not necessarily like a real version of what.
And yet, I was not very engaged with social media until about 2012, but I got a new manager and I was sort of saying like, I don't feel like tweeting my opinions. I don't feel like posting my lunch date. And he was like, you have to. He's like, people who are looking to hire you, people who are just trying to figure out who you are, people who are about to meet with you, that's what they look at. And if you have limited engagement, you seem out of touch. And I'm like, and now I spend hours looking at Instagram. What do you?
Uh-huh.
I'm so in touch.
Yeah. I actually met Trista in December on a movie set, and I did think about afterwards, like we didn't get a picture together, so there's no proof that. Even though we have a movie that'll come out eventually. It is really
lovely when you have a photo of the first time you met someone that then became important in your life.
Yeah.
Those ones, but you don't know.
That's true.
What movie? What set were you on? What was the movie?
We can't say the name of the movie, I don't think, but it's a secret movie. That
secret movie?
But yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I can tell you, we can tell you off air. Email you about it.
That's cool. What were you both doing?
A lot of movies. I know she doesn't want to talk about herself on the interview, but yeah.
What were you both doing on the set of this mysterious?
Trista's the lead. I have a small part, and so this is the first movie set I was on, and the director also, I've said this before, but the director also asked me. First he also asked me to do the cook, which I was going to do, but that didn't happen. But also asked if I would do the BTS footage, and I was like, yeah, certainly. And so immediately after, I Googled what BTS footage meant because I had no idea what that stood for. And I was like, oh, glad it's just behind the scenes. It's not something.
Right. Like, you thought it was some like tech term.
Right. But yeah, I was just like, yeah, of course I'll do that. Whatever.
Oh yeah, BTS. Oh yeah, my grandmother used to do BTS. It's in my family.
Exactly. Yeah. And then afterwards, Trista told me that's the LA way. Just lie and say you can do
just
whatever.
Just nod and smile and figure it out. Thank God for Google.
Right. So you said though, you're like American Psycho. After years, like it gains momentum. So what's that like for you though? This is something you made and spent years on, and at the time, like you said, at Sundance, like a lot of people didn't like it, and then now, like it's an iconic movie, especially amongst horror fans.
It's friggin' great. It's really. I mean, it was the 20th 20th anniversary. I don't know why those words just couldn't get in the right order for me. It was the 20-year anniversary of the film this year. And so Mary and I did, a huge blob of many, many interviews. And we were, just privately kind of complaining about how we're sick of talking about it. And then we were like, yeah, but you know what? We're still talking. People still care. And so many movies have come out the last 20 years. So it's good, but it's hard not to get sick of, I don't often find anything new to say about it. So I was really pleased. One journalist, I think Movie Maker magazine, spoke to a lot of the actors and me and Mary. And so there were all these different details that I didn't know. My favorite being that Josh Lucas, who's one of the actors who plays, Patrick Bateman's friends, said that they were all sitting around in between takes being like, talking about how much Christian sucked and like they couldn't believe that Mary fought so hard for him because they were like, where's he even?
Right. He's done okay for himself since then.
Yeah, I feel like, well, Josh was laughing in the interview because he was like, we just, up close and without context, it was such a weird performance that we just were like, what does Mary see in this guy? Which I thought was funny. And just hearing, I don't know, I just hadn't really heard Willem Dafoe talk much about the process and his decision to do it. It was just that it was nice to get fresh blood. And I had forgotten, I recently saw that Christian talked about how he looked at Tom Cruise's way that he smiles but has like nothing behind his eyes as a way to a jumping off point for building the character, which I had forgotten that he said that, and I just think is cool and funny. And once you know that and see him do that, you're like, oh yeah, there's definitely some Cruise in there.
Yeah, I read, because for the interview, that it was a lot of different people were up for the role, which I didn't know about at the time. But do you know why she did go with
Christian?
Yeah.
What's funny is initially she offered the role to Billy Crudup. Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
And Billy was on board, and then he got in touch with her about a month later and said, I can't find this character, which I always thought was such a kind of like amazing actor thing to do. You know what I mean? Like most actors would be like, fuck it, I'm just going to like figure something out. But I think he was really like, Billy Crudup probably understood, like, if you get this character wrong, it could be really bad. Like you really have to create a kind of monster. And really commit to it in a way that Bale seems just so suited to. We now know him to be like the actor who commits, and gets lost in the character. And then, so she had met Christian before, and she's very, what's the word I'm looking for? She does not back down on casting. She feels really strongly about it. She spends so much time casting. She just felt that Christian she's like, he's a brilliant actor and he gets this part. And so many actors came in and didn't. Similarly with Bettie Page, she said, a lot of amazing actresses, well-known at the time, came in and she said, there's something about Bettie. She's like sexy, but she's innocent. She's not worldly, but she's not stupid, but she's a country girl. There's like all these layers. And so she said a lot of actresses just didn't have the essence. And similarly with Bateman, there's, you know what I mean? And can you imagine, because Leo, then you got taken away from us and Leo DiCaprio was going to play Bateman. And then, Mary was like, well, I don't want to direct a post-Titanic Leo DiCaprio movie. Like, no, I'm not going to be able to direct. There's going to be a team of people telling me what I can and cannot do. Walked away from it. Oliver Stone was signed on to direct, and eventually that fell apart. But can you imagine that movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio, directed by Oliver Stone?
Yeah, it's
I mean, I almost like, I want that. That parallel universe is really interesting to me, though. Just the idea of like what would that movie be, and like what a fantastic exercise in what a difference a director makes. Those
stories are always interesting to me because, like, it's hard to think of other characters or other actors playing like, iconic roles, but it's part of that is because you know that role, so it's hard to imagine someone else doing it. But it doesn't necessarily mean they'd be better or worse, but it's
right. I mean, Leo's a great actor, but the thing about Leo that I think was Mary was the most averse to is that Christian was not a famous actor at the time. This idea that he could be mistaken for other people, excuse me, and they could all, be interchangeable would not have worked with the most famous movie star in the world at the time. She was just like, it's Leo DiCaprio. How can you think he's anyone else? It was just like, he was too famous. Mm-hmm. And now, well, the thing is, still with Christian, I feel like he could do it today, and he's now so famous, but he could still just somehow, I watched,
there's
10
certain
minutes.
actors like that who you just always see as that person, and then there's actors that, they can.
Did you see his Dick Cheney movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot it was him, and like I know him. Do you know what I mean? It's incredible. Yeah, pretty incredible. He's incredible.
When I recently, this is sort of off topic, but when I recently listened to the Rambo audiobook, and a big part of it was the intro was about, how they tried to make Rambo for like 15 years or something. And there were so many different actors. Clint Eastwood was up for the role in the 70s, and Steve McQueen. And it's hard to think of, Steve McQueen as Rambo or Clint Eastwood, but it would have been, just a different movie, I guess.
Wow. Yeah. It's real. Those are such different vibes. Mm-hmm. From the Sly vibe.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't know that they used to read Rambo like in colleges and school. The book, well, the original book, not Rambo, First Blood, but. And then
I didn't even know it was a book.
Yeah, the author is like he said like it kind of ruined the book for a lot of people because then everyone just assumed it's like this gung ho, guy going around killing everybody, but it's really before its time. It's very much about PTSD. I'd recommend it. They were the first book.
Huh. I don't even know if I've ever seen the film Rambo. All you have to show me one.
You don't need to.
It just, I'm just like, I don't feel like that's a movie for me.
Yeah.
That's like a lot of guns.
Yeah.
A lot of greased up muscles and guns.
Uh-huh. So Charlie Says, you thought those are your last, the 2019 movie. For people who don't know, what is Charlie Says about? I know obviously you mentioned Charles Manson.
Charlie Says is about the women who killed for Charles Manson, kind of focused on their time in prison, which is something no one has ever talked about, certainly not in film and TV. People just sort of like, sex, orgy, murder, sensational trial, and then like we see tons of Charlie in prison and like no one ever talked about them again, and that really struck me. And what people don't know is that they were sentenced to the death penalty, but then the death penalty was lifted while they were waiting to be executed, but they wouldn't let them into general population for 7 years. So for 7 years, they were just stuck in this special unit that was made just for them because they were considered the most dangerous criminals in the world. And it's the story of them in that unit. And it flashes back so that you sort of see how they got there. And it's the true story of the woman who came to teach them, who was like a early feminist academic who just made them, gave them all these like proto-feminist 1972 books. And, literally the warden of the prison said to her, "This is true. I'd like you to give these women a feminist consciousness." That really happened. I did not make that up. When I found the book that was written by the woman who taught, her name was Carleen Faith, and read that, I was like, oh, finally, so much has been made on the subject of Manson and his followers and the Manson girls and blah, blah, blah. Just for those of you who are listening, I made air quotes in a very sarcastic way, Manson girls. And here's this story of, seeing them as individuals, understanding them, and like what each of their journeys was to sort of unbrainwash themselves or be helped along the way, and to understanding feminism, which was just to them like very like almost a dirty word, and like they didn't see themselves as victims, and so it's about that. I just made it sound really heady and intellectual. It's not in any way funny, but it is it's a real story. It's really trying to even sort of not humanize Charlie, but like take him down to who he really was, like not this magical evil like all-knowing, most evil mind in the world, but actually just a failed musician who was really good at conning people and really good at manipulating women, and, you know, right place, right time, etc. So just trying to like take it all down a notch to show like real people and like really what happened, and to try to sort of ask the audience to ask themselves, who would you be if you were this age at this time in American history? What, you know, would you jump into a van with a guy who, you know, who had a bunch of other women your age just looking like they're having the time of their lives? And the answer is, I know I would. You know what I mean? Like, I know that I would be counterculture at that time, and then how far, what could I have gotten sucked into? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you talk to any of the Manson girls when you were researching?
No, because one of them died in the 90s, but the other two who are still in prison, it's not at all good for their parole to talk to anyone, you know, from Hollywood, or trying to, you know, anything that could be perceived as continuing to sensationalize their crimes. So I figured that out pretty early on, that any contact with me would be bad for them. Yeah. So no, but I did spend a lot of time with Carlene, who taught them and who wrote a book called The Long Prison Journey of Leslie Van Houten. And she wrote that book about her time teaching them when they were in this isolated unit. But then she told me a lot of other stuff that wasn't in the book. And a lot of that is what informs the film as well. Just the dynamics among them and with her, and what it was like to see them, the painfulness of seeing them realize that they had killed for nothing and that they had been manipulated.
Oh, when was that available?
Pretty sad. Every time that movie ends, I cry, and I've seen it a billion times, and I wrote it, and I was there when it was shot, and like the ending of it is just makes me really sad. I'm proud of it, but I'm always surprised that it still gets me.
Is that weird to watch your own movies as a film, or does it make you cry because you think of the real people?
Both. But it's just, you know, the way that Mary directed it, and the actors, the final scenes with the actors they're just heartbreaking. I mean, it's sort of like, I'm not really crying like, I'm such a genius. I'm like, I'm so glad.
No, I didn't mean that, but yeah.
I'm more crying like,
look at my words. Yeah.
And I'm so glad that it gets to, you know, that I share this collaboration with someone who gets what I'm trying to do, and it makes it even better.
Yeah. Now, where is Charlie? Where can you see Charlie Says?
Amazon for sure. Perhaps iTunes. Easy to find. Maybe YouTube. If you Google it, it's on a bunch of digital platforms.
Mm-hmm. Can you say anything about the one you're writing now? The road that eats people, I believe it was called.
The highway that eats people.
The highway that eats people.
It's actually
Much
done.
Cooler.
It's done. We finished it maybe 2 years ago. Well, like all of our projects, it's very stop and start. Like we stopped Bettie to do American Psycho, and then went back to Bettie, and then did Highway, but then stopped for Charlie, and you know, that's the nature of the beast, really. Yeah, it's about 4 teenagers who are outcasts of the foster care system, and they're, you know, cough syrup slurping 7-Eleven smasher uppers. They're just wild animals, but they're like a little family, and they sleep in the woods and they wander the highway. And they're menacing, or you think they are the menace, but in actual fact, there's a serial killer who's sort of modeled after the Green River Killer, who was a Pacific Northwest. This is in upstate New York, our story, but a serial killer who specifically preys on homeless youth. A lot of people talked about that the Green River Killer was, preyed on prostitutes, but he preyed on homeless young women who were prostitutes. You know what I mean? Like they put a spin on it that didn't quite, really understand. So you started this movie thinking that these you're scared of these teenagers, and that's what's scary about the movie. But then you realize that there's something that they are actually being hunted, and it goes from there. And somehow, if you can believe it, some of it's funny. we laughed.
You're asking the wrong person that, wrong people that. I mean,
yeah, there's this one character that I don't know, for some reason I just found his voice, and we were just laughing. I don't know. He's just one of those. Sometimes they just come alive, you know. Yeah. They've just been dying for you to put them on the page and on the screen.
So when will that come out? You know, or is it right now? I guess is not a good time to.
I don't know. Do you have $2 million and can you get rid of a pandemic?
Well, I just bought this bookcase, so can't quite do it.
We're actively seeking funding, and we're also, like so many people, thinking about what a pre-vaccine set would look like, and what kind of scenes we have. I mean, it's luckily for us, you know, it's these 4 characters and they're outside a lot, so that's a plus. And then we have one scene where they go to this sort of off the grid community and live for a bit, but a lot of that is outside, which can help us. So we're COVID thinking. And then I have this other movie that I wrote with a different director. That is a straight up like horror movie. To star me, which we just wanted to write something that was, you know, one location, minimal characters, just, you know, to see if we could make a genre movie for like $500,000. And, but it's very COVID friendly because of that. And so we are also just like this close to finishing our financing, and we are like working hard on on-set COVID protocols of what they would look like, and you know, finding people we know and, you know, who, you know, don't have babies or live with old people and would be willing to quarantine, and figuring out how to shoot it in 12 days. And yeah, so that's actually really, it's like a puzzle, and we're sort of dying to be one of the first people to go into production. So we're just like, somebody please just give us that last $100,000. We're so ready. It's the main character is me. I'm a romance novelist who's very successful but can't write her last novel. So she goes off her medication and goes crazy, and people keep, like, her editor and her friend and the woman her housekeeper keep saying, like, do you want, like, let me just come over and, like, you know, see how you're doing. And she just keeps saying, don't come over, but they do. And then she kills them. So, like, the movie is called Don't Come Over. And the tagline is, no, seriously, don't.
I'm all about it. Yeah.
It has real emotional stakes, but it also has, like, hilarity as well. Like, it's funny, but it's also, like, genuinely, like, she kills a lot of people.
Yeah.
3 people, 4 people.
Yeah. Somebody doesn't like horror. You're doing a lot of horror here.
Yeah, but then this one is fun because I get to be like, I get to just lose my mind in a movie, and it's just a story about this person descending into madness. So it's like, it's not the kind of acting job I've ever gotten to do. I always play like the bitchy slut or the slutty bitch, you know? So this is like a woman like losing her mind, and what happens to her is she just starts to go into her romance novels. So I also just get to be in like full romance, like just picture like the end of Sunset Boulevard when she's like, I'm ready for my closing. Like, this movie kind of ends like that, where she just like walks into her own like crazy, you know, the other person in the fantasy is about to get killed.
Yeah.
I want to watch this movie.
I want to watch it.
Doesn't it sound fun?
Yeah.
It's like The Shining meets Misery meets what are other crazy. I'm trying to think about. I actually have been meaning to Google it. Like, meets Repulsion. You know, the Polanski baby did of losing her mind in her apartment. That's actually I want to study her going crazy in her apartment for it when we get to right down to shooting, because that's one of my favorite crazy lady movies ever.
Mm-hmm.
Polanski notwithstanding.
Is it weird to write a character that you're going to play?
It's fun. Because I wrote it with the director. Her name is Jane Clark. And I'm like, Jane, so can there be a part where I'm just like standing in a grave covered in mud, just going like, just moving totally crazy? And she was like, sure. Like, I'm just like seeing these set pieces that I really want that are sort of standard horror things. And, you know, I'm like, can I like, when I get the chainsaw, like, look at me, look at my stature and who my character is. Would I know how to operate a chainsaw, even though I'm about to cut up this dead body? Like, can I read the instructions? You know what I mean? Just like funny shit, or just like iconic horror movie shit, or just shit that will look amazing on an acting reel for me. Just stuff that will make me laugh, basically. Uh-huh. I mean, like, I did this movie once as an actor in London in the 90s where I played dominatrix. And it's like crazy fetish world, like, you know, costumes, and I have like, I'm a dominatrix. The character's a dominatrix in her real life, but she's also a big club performer. It's crazy. It is not a great movie, but like, if you know me, it is so funny to watch. Like, my sister, is her favorite movie ever. Just because the shit I'm wearing, the like hair pieces and the curtain and the like club scenes and whatever. I am a child at heart. I can't wait to just play dress up and be splattered in blood and mud and like screaming and running around and, you know.
I totally
good times.
understand. Yeah, of course. Where can people follow you to see what you're up to? You know, not to your home, but.
Follow me around West Hollywood. I am, you know, it's funny is somebody took Guinevere Turner on Twitter. So
really?
I'm at Turner Guinevere, but I'm not really super active on Twitter. I'm mostly on Instagram as Guinevere Turner. And yeah, that's about it. Maybe Facebook sometimes, but mostly just from my family. I was working with these young people a few years ago, and they were like, I was like, so what do you guys think about social media? They were like teenagers. And they were like, what was the one? They were like, TikTok is for girls. Instagram's for girls. TikTok is for boys. And Facebook is for old people.
That's the one I'm most active on.
I know. So those are the places you can find me. And I do highly encourage people to watch Charlie Says. It's a movie I'm very proud of. And laugh thinking of how I wouldn't have been that good as the warden. If you see, and do you know the actress Annabeth Gish?
Yeah.
She must have been a ballerina when she was a kid. She has this flawless posture that really, and she has it in real life, but she really brings it to the warden. And I was watching her and thinking, you know what? I'm also just too floppy and wiggly. Like, it would be a lot of effort for me to have that sort of like stately thing that she does just naturally. So Mary, as usual, Mary's right about casting.
Fair enough. Trista, do you have another comment or anything?
I just want to say thank you so much for your time. We were both so excited that you agreed to do this. We're huge fans of your work and your intellect.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm sorry I'm so hot. It must seem weird. It's just that it's the way my apartment is. There's no air conditioning except in the bedroom. And this, by the way, is warm now.
Oh, okay.
Well, thank you. Sorry. Thank you for making this big sacrifice for us.
That's the timer. Once the cold pack is warm.
When the cold pack is room temperature. Right. I have to go pick up my dog anyway. Thank you. Let me know when you are putting it up. Oh no, it is live now.
Yeah, and then I'll put it up on YouTube too. So hopefully later today.
Okay.
Yeah, if that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I got. This is my COVID hair, but it's the best my COVID hair can do.
I like it.
It's good.
Yeah.
No, it has to be on camera. Don't look at my roots though.
No, you look good.
Yeah,
you look great.
Would you do one more thing?
Yes.
Another guest that we had on was like a cast and crew, and they did this thing where they take screenshots of different faces, and I thought it was great, so I thought we would steal it. So can we do some type of face? It could be scary, whatever it is. We're just going to look in the camera and do this face, and I'm going to take a screenshot.
We all do it together?
Right.
Well, are we just do any face, or we're going to try?
No, we're going to decide on one. You can decide. Right. You can decide on what kind of face. It could be any type of emotion or anything, and we'll all look in the camera and we'll do it, and I'll take a screenshot.
Let me think. Wait, no, you decide. I don't want the pressure.
Trista here.
No, did you have something?
No, I didn't actually. I just had the idea, but I didn't.
I got overwhelmed with all the possibilities.
Right.
Oh, really?
I should have thought this through, I guess.
Okay. How about
they made it seem so easy. Surprise,
but trying to hide it. Like, right. You look away, and then when you look back, you're surprised, but you're trying to hide it. I not know what my face is going to do right now.
Okay, right. Me either.
So 3, 2, 1.
I'm not hiding it very well.
All right. Well, I think that worked.
That's a fun game.
I like it. Yeah, that's why I wanted to steal it. But I told them I'll hashtag their movie. Hashtag spread the dark offering. So if I'm stealing their idea, at least we'll plug their movie too. I think that's only fair. Yeah. All right.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm looking
Bye.
forward to The Highway Eats the Road. The Highway Eats. Well, I'm looking forward to that too. That'll be the sequel. But, yeah.
That's the sequel, yeah. That's the meta sequel.
It is, right.
People. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.